All right, let's dive in. We're going to be talking about the prosperity gospel, this idea that your faith is directly linked to how healthy and wealthy you are. But where did that even come from? Well, the answer is probably not what you think. It's a pretty fascinating story, so let's trace the roots of this family tree together. So, to get a sense of where we are today, just take in this quote from televangelist John Offenzini. The idea that Jesus himself was wealthy and that wealth is a sign of God's blessing, that's really a cornerstone of what many preach now. It's a bold statement for sure, and it perfectly sets the stage for the big question we're asking. So how do we get from the Jesus we read about in the Gospels to a Jesus who wears designer clothes? Well, to really get it, we have to go way back. I mean, long before TV preachers and megachurches. We have to trace the intellectual DNA of this full movement, and you'll see its roots are planted in some pretty unexpected soil. And that journey takes us right here to the 19th century. Now, you got to picture this time. It was buzzing with new ideas about everything: science, spirituality, and especially the power of the human mind. And it's in this creative chaos that a new philosophy of healing started to emerge, one that laid the groundwork for everything that followed. So this idea of healing without doctors wasn't just one person's weird idea. It was kind of in the air. But there's one guy who really stands out, Phineas P. Quimby. Around the 1860s, he created a whole system based on one central idea, that your belief could literally change your physical reality. And his system, well, it was about to grow into a huge movement. And that movement was called New Thought. The core idea is pretty revolutionary, even today. It says that your mind is the cause, and the world around you is the effect. So your thoughts aren't just these passive things floating around in your head. Nope, they are active forces that actually create your circumstances. This right here, this is the ideological seed for everything else. Quimby was really the trailblazer. He basically argued that being sick was, at its root, caused by a wrong belief. So if you could fix a person's thoughts, he figured you could fix their body. And look at what he called it: Christian Science, or the science of health. He was packaging these mental techniques in a way that sounded spiritual, even scientific. Okay, so we've got this 19th century movement all about the power of the mind. But how in the world does that get into the church? I mean, that's a huge leap, right? Well, it needed a bridge. And it turns out one person in particular became that bridge, translating these new thought ideas into a language that a whole new group of people would understand. And that man was E.W. Kenyon. So back in the late 1890s, Kenyon got exposed to all these new thought ideas, and something just clicked for him. He started blending them with his evangelical Christian beliefs. He took the language of mind and thought and just rephrased it using more familiar biblical words like faith and confession. And this is where you can really see it happen. The parallels are just obvious. Where New Thought said your mind creates your reality, Kenyon taught that your faith, when you speak it out, is a force that creates reality. The engine is basically the same, a non-physical power changing the physical world. He just swapped out the vocabulary. Now, Kenyon's ideas didn't just stop with him. Not at all. They took root and grew into these massive branches that we now know as the Word of Faith movement. It's a really influential stream within modern Christianity, and it has some very specific teachings built right on top of Kenyon's foundation. One of the absolute pillars of this movement is something called positive confession. And this isn't just about being optimistic or looking on the bright side. No, it's the belief that your words have literal creative power. The teaching is that by speaking out scriptures in faith, you can actually bring things like health or money into existence. What you say is what you get. Just listen to this from Kenneth Copeland, who's one of the biggest names in the Word of Faith movement. He's saying that this is how God operates. He speaks things into existence. And the idea here is that believers are supposed to do the same thing. You use your words, your confession, to call health into a body that's sick, or to call money into a bank account that's empty. And that leads right into the second big idea. Faith isn't just a belief, it's a literal force. Think of it less like an emotion and more like a law of physics, like gravity. In this view, faith is a tangible spiritual power. And when you release that force of faith by speaking, it's expected to trigger real, tangible results in the world. So we've traced this idea all the way from a 19th century mind cure healer through E.W. Kenyon and right into the Word of Faith movement we see today. But as you can probably guess, these teachings are definitely not without some serious theological debate and controversy. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? This is the heart of the whole debate. Folks inside the movement will say they are simply taking the Bible literally, at its word. But critics look at the same thing and say, hang on, you're taking verses out of context to back up a philosophy that already existed, a philosophy that looks a whole lot like New Thought. Let's just look at a couple of quick examples. A huge verse for the movement is Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinks, so is he. But critics will immediately point out that if you read the chapter, the context is a warning about a dinner host who's secretly cheap. Or take calling things that are not. Critics argue that verse in Romans is talking about God's unique power to create everything from nothing, not a formula for us to use. And faith can move mountains? Many see that as a powerful metaphor for overcoming impossible odds, not a literal instruction. And the criticisms go even deeper. Some theologians worry that certain teachings, like calling Jesus the first born-again man, actually reduce his unique status as God. Others are concerned that the heavy focus on money and health can overshadow other core Christian beliefs, turning faith into a cosmic vending machine. And maybe the most painful criticism for many is the fallout, the idea that if you're still sick or poor, it must be because of your own personal lack of faith. But here's what's so wild. This family tree doesn't stop at the church doors. That core New Thought idea that your mind creates your reality is absolutely everywhere today. I mean, think about the self-help industry, the law of attraction, or all the talk about manifesting your dreams. It's the same fundamental belief, just dressed up in secular language. So think about that journey. An idea about healing with your mind, born in the 1800s, has branched out to become both a global religious movement and a major pillar of modern self-help. The vocabulary changes, but the core idea is still going strong. And that just leaves us with a final question to chew on. What does the incredible survival and spread of this idea tell us about our own deep-seated desire to believe that we can control our destiny with the power of our own minds?